everyone. Nice to meet some of you and see some of you again. I am Lindsay. I'm the Director of Practice Solutions here within CareStack, but I want to officially welcome you all to our official boot camp and our best practices for managing claims within CareStack. I do encourage all of you, by the way, to hang out until the end of our time here today. We have prepared a special offer for those of you that are interested in seeking assistance related to everything revenue cycle management and how we can help you within care revenue. So that special offer will be towards the end of our time today, but wanted to make sure that I encourage those of you to get on board there. Otherwise, what I'd love to do is go ahead and kick it off and get started with some introductions here. I've already introduced myself, but I have our fabulous team here, Jackie, Yeva, and Anthony. I'll let each of them introduce a little bit about themselves and how we're going to be able to support you guys here within CareStack. So Jackie, if you want to go ahead and kick it off.
Sure, thanks so much. Well, to those of you I don't already know and to those I'm seeing again, hi everybody, my name's Jackie. I lead the Practice Heroes team here at CareStack, and I'm excited to be here again for, I think it's our 29th bootcamp episode, which is kind of shocking. We've done so many of these and we've covered claims before, but there's never a shortage of things to talk about when it comes to best practices with claims management. So really happy to be here and see some of you all again and meet some new people as well. So thank you. I'll hand it over to Eva.
Thank you, Jackie. Well, some of you, I saw some familiar faces, so we might know already each other. But again, as Jackie said, for those who we haven't met before, my name is Eva Rivera. I'm a practice hero here at CareStack. I worked at ortho and multi-specialty practices over 7 years, and I do have a strong passion for RCM, so I'm very happy to be here today.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Anthony, and I serve as the Director of Revenue Cycle for the Care Revenue product, and I've spent my career in the financial side of healthcare. I started out as a finance accounting person, worked on mergers and acquisitions, and then found my way into revenue cycle in hospital, inpatient, outpatient, and specialty providers. I've spent some time in dental, so I'm happy to be here and help answer questions tonight.
Awesome. Thank you so much, team. They are the masterminds behind everything that we put together here for you guys tonight. What we'll be diving into, just a quick rundown, is our importance of claim management. Why is it important to manage our claims in a particular way, right? And how does that impact you in the practice? We're also going to walk through different stages of each claim within CareStack, right? How can you maximize your usability and making sure you're creating the most efficiency that you can for the practice. And then we'll also be covering optimal ways for efficient claims billing. Okay, so a lot of great topics today. Our experts are really going to dive into each slide here, and hopefully we'll be taking large nuggets away that are going to be helpful for you and your team.
Lindsay, I love that we have this agenda outlined, and thank you for going over those. I hope that we have some people who maybe are new to this process in their practice, and also some people that are quite experienced, because everybody can learn something tonight and take away some pearls of wisdom. So I'm glad that we're covering a nice broad spectrum of best practices.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a great transition to the quote we have here today. If RCM is the engine that truly drives business performance, we feel that then the claims are the tires and the wheels that are the only part gripping the actual tarmac. And so that holds a lot of meaning here, right? And this is what we really want to kick it off with, to really let it sink in for a minute to understand how is this going to affect the next step within your business and your practice. Awesome. So with that, we'll go ahead and dive into our life cycle of a claim in CareStack. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and let you, Jackie, take it away with walking through what that looks like.
Certainly. So the life cycle of a claim in CareStack, or really in any system, that is important to understand that there are many stages that go right from the inception all the way to things being completed and hopefully paid successfully. So I think it's important that we cover what these things look like. And that first stage being the appointment itself. This is usually our first opportunity, either at the appointment on the date of service or hopefully prior to that, where we're actually able to gather the insurance information that we need to have in order to process a healthy claim and submit it successfully. Naturally, the next step after that will be eligibility and verification of that insurance. But we have to make sure that we're collecting the right information up front thoroughly. We can't leave pieces out because then we could possibly be submitting incorrect information. So that next step is just as important. And then, of course, treatment completion. This is where we're actually taking those codes that we've entered into our environment to recognize the services that we're rendering and ensuring that it is also linked to the insurance on file correctly so that we are submitting the right information to insurance, we're reflecting the right fees in our environment, whether that's your UCR or you're reflecting fee schedules with your insurance. And then naturally, after we've completed that treatment, we're generating our claims and we're submitting. And hopefully we're doing that as close to the date of service as possible. We want to have the shortest window of time between rendering services and completing that treatment and getting that treatment off to insurance to be paid as fast as possible. After we've gone through that natural cycle that I think everyone's fairly familiar with, of course, then we need to delve into the claim statuses. What is the feedback that we're getting from the clearinghouse and from the carriers? What's the status of this claim? Is it going to be paid? Is it being rejected or denied for some reason? And is there action that we can take from that? Or do we have payment pending? And how long do we expect to wait for that? How long can we expect for that cycle to be complete? And of course, ultimately closing that claim. And of course, we always hope we're closing with payment. Yeva, Tony, anything you want to add to that overview of a life cycle?
No, that's really the overview of it, and that's exactly what does occur. And I think when we talk about, we'll cover this a little later though, but when we talk about claim generation and submission, you have to watch for those things that will come back to you as returns to the clearinghouse. So sometimes when you send a claim, you're not necessarily going to get an explanation of benefit. And we'll talk about this a little later. You have to watch what's happening when you send them through the clearinghouse.
Yeah, that'll be the earliest indicator if there's action that needs to be taken or something that we need to intervene with. So I'm glad we could kind of cover this just as a high level. We're going to dive into all these areas, but it's important we cover them all thoroughly and see them kind of in a chronological order, because if you miss one of these steps, it's critical to the success of that claim, usually negatively critical. So we want to make sure that we have a thorough understanding of all the steps.
Absolutely. Anything else to add, Yeva?
Anthony added, and I know we're so passionate about this topic, so we might have, we can't wait to talk about it. So I think we could move to the next slide.
Perfect. Next, we're going to dive into how do we optimize that claim generation within CareStack, right? There's going to be so many methods that we can help manage within the practice and within CareStack that we can really make sure that all of those varying degrees can enter a certain level of success, right? And so here I'm going to let the team dive into how do we do that. Awesome. Great.
I think we're going to jump into our claims module in a couple slides here. I think we have our next one, Lindsay, we can probably progress to.
Yeah. So here, right, we want to make sure that the claims are going to be completed accurately. We want to make sure that we're batching those claims daily. And also we want to make sure that the claims module and workflow are all aligned, right? We also want to make sure that we have effective claim flag communication. And that's going to be extremely important to the success of these pieces.
And I would like to add something. For example, the first one that we have, procedures completed accurately, what exactly that means, right? So not only to complete the right procedures, what the patient was seen for, but to make sure that that's the right location, the right provider, all that information is tagged to that completed procedure is correct. And, we're going to dive later on as well how to set those NEA recommendations. So while we have patient in a chair, that we take all extras that's needed to support that claim as well.
Yeah, something I'd like to add to that as well, and we're talking about this insurance element. Of course, we're talking about claims here. We mentioned it briefly on that life cycle side that we were on before, but ensuring that we have the right insurance on file and how it's interacting with these codes that we're completing. Yeva, you brought up a really great point. We're not just making sure that the services we delivered are being completed, but are they completed under the right provider? And if you are a multi-site practice, is it being completed at the right location? Those two elements being attached to those codes are syncing up with the insurance information you have on file. So for those of you who are in network with insurances, as you know, fee schedules are very specific. They're specific to the region in which your practice is at. It can be specific to your provider if they're a specialty, if they're in network or out of network with a specific kind of plan. So having all of these elements be very accurate, and I'm not even going to harp on, of course, wanting it just to be accurate for your provider's production and their numbers, but wanting it to be accurate so that these claims are processing correctly. Because if they're going out under the wrong provider, they're likely going out under the wrong fees as well, which will have certainly a rolling downhill kind of effect when it comes to the success of your claims. And we'll jump into the module in just a moment. Yeva, I know you had some comments about the batching the claims daily. I know this is one you talk about a lot with our customers, so.
Absolutely. And we're going to demonstrate that as well and the options we have in CareStack, but our most successful clients, not only that we batch daily, we do even see them batching twice a day, before that lunch break and right before the end of day. So just making sure that we don't miss. I remember those days when we used to have sticky notes, don't forget to create a claim for this patient. So with CareStack, we don't have to do that. We have this option.
Yep, exactly. And the claims module workflow, I think we're going to talk about claims flags a little bit later on in the slide deck. So we can probably jump right into sharing our screen, Yeva, if that's okay. I know we're going to bring up a demo environment where we can show you guys in real time this claims module workflow and how important it is to your RCM processes in the practice.
Absolutely. So as you see over here, we have the patient who's scheduled for today. If I hover over, I see my codes, but let me just navigate to the chart. And as you might, the users know already that we can complete that code from the appointment or chart. So I'm right now over here. I have some recommended procedures and cherry pick them all. I'm gonna right click and I can just complete here. Before I complete, Jackie, is there anything you would like to add here?
No, I think this is a great example for those who want to see different ways to create their claims, because there are a number of different ways. We'll show you them all tonight. All of them are leading to the right direction, right? But we want to find the workflows that work well for you.
Right. So again, I got my completed codes. I really like just navigated to the filters to save my time here. So I have my completed codes here. Again, I'm going to cherry pick them, right click. So this approach is going to be manual approach, right? Whenever, let's make a fun of it. Whenever I have a time at the practice, I can do it manual way. And I can go ahead and create a claim and create my primary claim this way. Now, the other option that we just spoke about, batching claims, we can do that as well. And batching claims with, again, we do not just for one patient. We have ability for the system to swap for all patients. We have completed services with insurance on file, right billing order that we're also going to be talking about to have those claims generated. So if I'm not going to follow this route, I can again go and navigate to my claims dashboard and I can batch jobs, generate batch claims, and select my settings here.
I think that this is really important to mention. I know that we have users that really have their heart set on creating their claims appointment by appointment. I think it's a very traditional habit. I know I used to do it once upon a time before I was a CareStack user and before coming to CareStack, and there's nothing wrong with it. I personally think it takes a little bit more time. So if we're looking for efficient workflows, I really love the batch process. But even if you do the one-by-one manual, that's fine. But I still strongly recommend you use the batch feature because we're all human, right? We're going to make mistakes. We're going to skip over an appointment by accident, or more than likely, maybe your provider's catching up on some of his work and realizes, oh, I forgot to complete that PA, and he just completes it from the chart. it won't be attached to an appointment at that point. So we don't want to miss those opportunities. So think of your batch as just casting a nice wide net over all of your patients that have completed codes and insurance on file. It's going to scoop them all up and create claims for you on your behalf. You will.
Jackie, I agree with that and support that. The other, as far as saving time, consider the number of start and stops that you're doing throughout the day. Every time you change a business process during your day, it takes time to set up and stop that one, start something else. And certainly with the batching, you can just sweep those all at once. And if you would add up all the time you spend individually creating the claims, it's far more than the batching.
Yeah, you're certainly right. Definitely. I'm always trying to accommodate those, handful that just die hard. They want to hang on to that manual process. But I totally agree. I think the batching is the fastest and most efficient way. And as Eva can show here on the screen, you can also set your date range to be wide. It doesn't have to be for one date of service. You can also set this back 3 months so you can constantly look through your environment. We all know the providers who come to me 3 weeks later and say, "Oh, Jackie, by the way, I forgot to complete this code when the patient came in last time." "Okay, sure, doc, I'll take care of that." That's not an appointment on my schedule to see today. So this is where my batch really comes in handy. And I know we have a question that just popped up. Devin asked, "Can you please show the batch steps again?" Certainly, we can walk through that one more time.
Again, so I navigated to the claims here under billing. And then it usually brings us to the pending submission claims. I clicked on the batch jobs tab. And on the right-hand side, we have generate batch claims button. Once I click, I have the screen available for me and I can follow the steps. You can be really, specific here. I don't recommend being specific because we might miss something. So to leave as wide date range and select all the locations that you have and all the providers, that would be the best workflow.
Yep. And what will happen after we batch this? Don't think that this is like the end of the road. Oh my gosh, I've just lost all my control. All it's doing is putting all of your claims ready to go, and it's going to dump them right into that claims pending submission tab. So you still have the opportunity to go view them. It's going to go through that soft scrub and look for those saved with error flags or ones that are ready to process. So you'll still have some control if there's some areas where you might need to intervene or check on something, but you'll have that information at your fingertips as soon as you finish your batch job.
And we're going to review that section with some errors and how it looks like in CareStack.
Yep.
Okay.
So, do you want to jump back to that pending submission tab, Eva, and we can kind of show a little bit about this module?
Yes. Absolutely.
So I would hope everybody is batching or creating their claims daily, or at the very least, first thing in the morning for the previous date of service. I know sometimes you need to give your doctors a little time to catch up with notes, and that's fine, but I would strongly recommend not going more than just one day, if you can avoid it, to get that in there. And this is where you're going to see all of those claims that you create. They're going to drop into this bucket until you actually transmit them electronically through the clearinghouse. And as you can see in here, we've got a lot of different columns. All of them are pretty self-explanatory, but you can search or filter throughout them if you're looking for something. But probably one of the most important columns that we have here is giving our claim status to the far right. This is telling you where you need to take some initial action so that we can process healthy claims. So when you create claims and they go through your system, they're actually going through an initial sweep through our clearinghouse to look for any kind of, I always refer to them as like fatal errors, the non-negotiables, the little bits of information that if they're missing, this claim isn't going anywhere. It's not about eligibility or coverage at this point, it's just about a functional electronic claim. So you're going to want to look for those statuses and address them right away so we can get them sent out successfully. And we do have a question here, Eva, from someone named Green. I'm assuming that's the last name, but it says, what is the ABP, which is that orange flag we see on the claim ID column? And is that new, was the question.
It's been around for a while, I believe, a couple of releases back, but that's the flag when the benefit is paid to the patient. So those insurances who are not going to issue the payment to the practice, we can mark that and flag that claim. So we know what the expectation is.
Tony, from the care revenue side of things, do you have any advice or any comments on the ADP usage in CareStack?
Yes, for our care revenue clients, if you're you have to understand that when we mark the claim that the assignment is not there, it doesn't necessarily change the behavior of the dental plan. Many dental plans look at the claims system by saying, if I'm receiving a claim from a provider, I will pay the provider. Some will say, okay, if they're not contracted, we'll pay the patient directly. But that setting doesn't guarantee how the payer would behave with that claim. We just recommend to the care revenue clients that if you're sending a claim, don't mark, leave the assignment of benefits in place, and the payer is going to do what it does. The other thing that the altering the assignment flag does is it immediately puts all the money as due from the patient on your ledger. The claim might be open, but there's $0. So if you're looking to do follow-up on those and you run your aging, guess what? Those dollars are now all due from the patient, and you're kind of missing the opportunity to keep up with that claim. Now, some practices say they're good with that because they collect from the patient at point of service and they send the claim and never again they look at it. With most of our care revenue clients, they're expecting us to do follow-up on that and keep up with that claim that it goes through.
Yeah. And you kind of just remind me of something. I think that a lot of our specialty customers, like people that work in specialty practices where they're not often in network, often they're fee for schedule, but they will submit claims as a courtesy for their patients. They're often collecting in full because that's the expectation that they've set with their policy. But they're trying to influence as much as they can with the claims to send reimbursement to the patient, because at that point they've already collected payment in full. They don't need any, if all, insurance money coming their direction. They just want it to go straight to the patient. So to those who are asking about that ADP, that's a tool that you can use to hopefully influence your claims in that way. If you're collecting in full, that can be a helpful workflow.
I wanted to add one more point to the assignment of benefits. If you look at the claim itself, the assignment of benefits is a signature line that often just says signature on file. It's not a field that's marked necessarily on the claim form. So when you think about operationally how a dental plan would handle that, the computer logic, they look at that field, I guess, if they see characters, they assume there's an assignment. If they don't see characters, it depends on how they program their system. So it's not an absolute switch on the claim form like many other fields. It is going to be handled as that payer handles it. So again, some payers will look at the world by saying, if I'm getting a claim from a provider, I'll pay the provider. And some will say, hey, if they're not a contracted provider, we always pay the patient. It varies widely across these plans.
Okay, so what I'm picking up, Tony, and I want to clarify for the audience, is that it's not a foolproof system. However, if it's working as we intend it to, it is meant to indicate that benefits can be paid out to the patient because the practice is collecting in full, or at least not expecting it from the insurance.
Yeah, it's a standard claim form field, and if they're saying they don't accept assignment, then it won't put anything in that signature field, and theoretically the payer would say, oh, I'll pay my member, but okay, that's not a guarantee of how that payer is going to handle that claim.
Okay. And we have one more question while we're still in this window before we move forward, is about the red circles that you can see on the screen here. The red circles, I know this is near to Ava's heart, are indicating patients that have been flagged as an ortho patient. So that's what the red circle means. All right, so I guess we could probably move forward. I know we wanted to do a little overview of the claims module window, and we're going to cover a little bit more in this as we continue forward. Eva, was there anything else you wanted to show in here?
There's some things I'm kind of thinking, do we want to move through these tabs, or would we like to show our participants what do we do, when we batch that claim and we still have completed services but not submitted to the insurance, or there's no claim generated? Do we want to talk about that now?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Let's do a quick overview of the tabs across the top for anyone who might be new to CareStack. And then I think it'd be great for us to show that report.
Absolutely. So as we talked, we have pending submission tab where we have our claims ready or not to be submitted to insurance. Again, we can take an action and fix our claims. Document pending, that used to be my favorite at a practice. system tells me when I need to attach something to the claim to get that approved. Denied, again, we don't have to wait for that EOB to come via mail. We have that communication via clearinghouse. So if the claim is denied, I can click and look into the reason why, as well as rejected. One that some clients do forget, unfortunately, about this, and I can't stress enough how important it is to pay attention to our pending payment tab to make sure that those open claims that got submitted and approved that we just waiting payment on and what's going on. Let's follow up on those. So that's another tab. And of course, on hold, if there is any reason that we want to put a claim on hold, and maybe Anthony, you have more examples of those scenarios.
Well, we may have a claim on hold if there's a missing key component on a claim where we're looking at it and saying, yeah, for this particular payer, we're going to need the address of the patient. We have what appears to be an incomplete address. There's just any number of things that we could look and say, let's put that claim on hold. Maybe the claim is on hold because the practice is saying, we've got a new doctor. We expect the dental plan to retroactively enroll them in the program. So we're going to hold the claims until we get word that they've been enrolled in the network, and then we'll release them all.
That's a good point. One other one I want to point out just briefly, because some of our viewers might notice this, you can see your claim order as secondary. There are settings in CareStack where you're able to automatically create secondary claims at the time of creating a primary. And that is a specific workflow that you may like and you may want. So we built the ability to do that. Some people don't choose to. They'd rather create a secondary manually upon the primary getting paid. But if you do choose to use that setting, this is where your secondary claims will fall up until the point you're ready to process them.
Great. And then we, of course, have all claims tab here. I just wanted to mention one thing to add to all this claim grid. This is a live grid, as I say. So if you have 10 members working on claims, this is a great tool because it updates. We have that last updated section here as well as date of service. So we don't have to ask team members, have you worked on it? We can take a look when the last time it got updated.
Very good point.
Okay.
So I know the next topic we were going to talk about, Eva, is, okay, we've learned a little bit about our claims generation process. We're looking at our claims module and how to navigate in here, getting more comfortable with what we find, but what resources do we have to ensure that we're not missing anything either outside of doing those batch jobs? And one of our favorite resources is actually an operational report, which is called the Insurance Pending Procedures Report. And if there's anybody on this call I've met before, you've probably heard me go talk about it at length, but I can't talk about it enough because it's a huge, huge resource. This is another one of those safety net reports that are going to help me stay on top of what's going on in my environment and make sure I'm not missing any opportunities. And in this report, you can see, maybe Eva, could you open the filters up for just a moment so people can see what this looks like? I always recommend start the report off in summary view. We don't need to overcomplicate it from the start. Set your date range. Of course, I always would recommend that to run this on a daily basis for today or maybe for the prior date of service, whatever your workflow is. At the very least, run it weekly, but I strongly suggest daily. And then the rest of the settings is your choice, however you want to filter or curate this. But again, the more filters you apply, the smaller your net is. I'd rather you cast a wide net. So you can generate it without many other filters. And then if we close this slider, we can see that this is what it will yield for a report. And this report can give you any of three conditions, which you see in that first left-hand column. The first one being completed services not billed to insurance. And any of the blue items on the side, as you know, that's a hyperlink if we want to look into the details, but completed services not billed to insurance is going to show you where there was a code completed, the billing order was set to N, do not bill to insurance, but there is insurance on file. So CareStack, trying to help you out, is saying, hey, heads up, you've completed a code that's normally a billable code. You have insurance on file, but this is not getting caught up in a claim. Was this intentional or was this a mistake? So maybe Eva, could you click into one of those links? We can show them what that looks like.
Absolutely. And I usually get a question from the clients. How come I have insurance on file and the billing order is in? We never check anything. We didn't make changes. So usually what we encounter, if not all the times, but we add insurance after the code is completed, and that just defaults to N.
We see that with our clients as well, that we keep an eye on this with them and show them how to stay on top of this daily. And I definitely recommend that you do this at least daily, because you don't want this inventory to grow. And by the time you find it, you have to commit a whole half a day's work to cleaning it out. Mm-hmm. So it can happen any number of ways, but if you're running this twice a day, once a day, you're keeping it clean.
Right.
Totally agree. And beyond that, also, it's just top of mind. If I ran this report once a month, I'm not going to remember half the stuff that's on here. I'm going to have to research every single code one by one, which is going to take me time. If I do it daily and I look at this and I say, okay, Sally had a 0120 completed, it's marked N, but she has insurance, and that's a pretty common code. We're talking about periodic oral evaluation. I'm going to recognize that immediately and say, oh, I remember why. The doctor told me not to charge for that because of XYZ reason. It's his cousin's brother's wife. Okay, now I remember. I don't need to do a lot of research. It's top of mind. So that's another great reason to just run this daily to stay on top of it. So Eva, could we jump back to the first stage of this report, and then we'll go through the next one. So the next condition is completed services with insurance mismatch. This is, in my opinion, I see it the least often, which is great. That means things are healthy. But I find this to be one of the most clever catches that we can have in our environment. And this one, if you want to click into the grid, is going to show you when a service was completed, it's billable to insurance. And maybe we can zoom in a little bit, Eva, because this is teeny tiny. It's billable to insurance, so it has the right billing order. But if you can circle those columns, my code was completed with a claim carrier of Blue Cross, but the insurance that I have on file now is Delta Dental. So what that title of completed services with insurance mismatch is letting you know, hey, you completed a code and created a claim under this carrier, but you have a different carrier on file right now. Are you sure you meant to do this? That's essentially what the report's saying to you. Is this intentional, or was this a whoopsie? Sometimes it is. Sometimes we complete that code again, and then the patient's walking out and says, oh, by the way, I have this insurance. This is my primary now. Oh, okay, thanks, Jane. I'll catch up with that. And then we forget to update the records. So another great opportunity. And then last but not least, probably the easiest one to address on this report is completed services with a primary pending claim creation. Simple definition, you've got completed codes with insurance on file in the right billing order, and just nobody has pulled the trigger on a batch or manually created a claim yet. So it's just another reminder, hey, don't forget to send these to insurance. Everything's healthy, it's lined up to get created properly. You just have to create that claim. Anything else any of you would like to add to that report being used on a daily basis?
I don't call it report. As always, I call it assistant right hand. Out here.
Yes.
Jackie, I think we had a comment a few moments ago about billing primary and secondary at the same time, and I concur with the comment. I think it was Mike that made the comment. In the care revenue side, we do not bill those simultaneously, and we advise our clients, please don't touch that dial, because we're going to bill those sequentially with EOBs as it occurs in the normal course of business. Because when you bill them simultaneously, you're assuming a lot. You don't know how that primary is going to handle that claim. So you don't want to have to go back and fix those secondary claims again. So I agree with that comment, and we ask our clients, don't touch that dial.
Very good point. Thank you. All right. So I think if we want to switch over to our next slide, which actually what we're going to cover next on our presentation, Lindsay, that you've got the controls to, was that manual versus batch claims creation, which I know we talked about a little bit already. Yes. And again, we love the questions, everybody. So please keep adding into that Q&A window or into the chat. We love this feedback.
Perfect. And then we want to cover post-treatment and CareStack as well.
I think on our next slide, we had that claim generation. If you want to move forward to the next one.
There we go.
Okay. I would, and again, we would love to see any questions come through if anyone has any concerns or questions about manual versus batch jobs, but I think that we did cover that quite thoroughly earlier. Manual creation is just fine, but if you're looking for your most efficient and casting your widest net to create those claims and making sure you're not missing anything, batch jobs are really going to be your best friend, and we strongly encourage you to do those on a daily basis to make sure that those are coming through.
Perfect.
Let me just see, we've got a question in here from Devin. There's a question, can you remove them from the list? And I'm assuming we mean those and do not bill to insurance. So you don't have to keep remembering why they're on there after the first time. That is a good question, Devin, that has been brought up in the past. And I believe our development team is looking to find a way to mark those codes intentionally so they don't keep filling up your report. This is another reason why we say run them on a daily basis for one date of service at a time. It's great to run that report for a wider date range if you're just trying to do some checks and balances to make sure nothing slips through. But if you're running it on a day-to-day basis, then the ones that you determined yesterday are not ones to worry about. They were intentional. Those won't show in your report if you're just running it for the day that you're looking at. But that is something that we're trying to work on. So I hope we'll have more news for you on that someday in the future, but we are working on that one. We've got a couple more questions here. With RCM, do we need to submit the EOB of the primary to the portal so that secondary claim can be sent, or does the RCM team do this? So Anthony, I'm going to pass that one off to you.
Yeah, for Care Revenue, we handle all that for you, all the claim attachments, we gather up the EOB and we'll send it with the secondary. And that's the main reason that we ask people not to touch that dial, because we will take care of that, yes.
Okay, and to clarify for RCM, RCM stands for Revenue Cycle Management. We also loosely refer to it internally, RCM, as Care Revenue. Once upon a time, yes, we call it RCM just for short, but RCM in the industry in general is referring to Revenue Cycle Management. So all things regarding the money coming into your practice, both insurance and patient payments.
Yes, thanks for clarifying, Jackie.
Okay. One other question that we had come in is, why do I have claims in a pending primary claim creation if I'm running batches every day? So that's a good question. I would imagine if we're thinking about the criteria on that operational report, I'm guessing that that's where you're seeing that. If you're, I'm trying to think of a scenario here. If you're running that report on a regular basis and you don't have codes that are completed yet and they've been completed after you ran that report, you would see those codes there, or after you're creating that batch, you could have more codes being completed. That would be one reason why something might show up on that report. If that's not really fitting the bill, I think that might be one we have to look into on a one-on-one, you know, if that were something that you're seeing as habitual. But in general, that report's going to catch any claims that were, any codes that were completed that need to be added to a claim. So again, if you're running a batch or if you're creating your claims manually appointment by appointment, if codes are being completed directly from the chart and those codes aren't linked to an appointment, that's an opportunity for codes not to be caught from a claim being created from the appointment itself. So just a couple ideas. I hope that helps and helps you look into that a little bit further. Okay, shall we move forward?
We shall. Next slide we have here is discussing batch jobs, which I know we delve into quite in depth. So we can go ahead and jump forward if your guys are okay with that as well.
Yeah, I think we covered that pretty good.
Great. Awesome. Now, what if a claim's not generated? I know we touched a little bit here as well, but that's a big one, right? We want to make sure we're maximizing the generation of every claim. So team, I'll let you go ahead and jump in here.
And I can add to that. Usually I would get or see the support tickets as well sometimes. And what's going on, you know, we have this, that claim is not generated. What's happening? And I'm like, let's play detective. That's one of my favorites. A little bit nerdy, but it's really interesting to find that why behind it. So as in this slide deck, and we have an example, number one, let's make sure our billing order is right. If that's right, okay, what's next? Let's make sure that insurance is actually active, not terminated. And third but not least, let's make sure that create claim option on the insurance side is selected as yes. Many times I've seen when we have it selected as no, and then we are not able to create that claim.
I think those are good points to bring up, and I hope nobody feels that these are like, well, duh. I mean, they are basic, but these are the ones that can kind of stump you when you think you've dotted all your I's and crossed your T's. It's often one of these little settings that you just assume are fine, but it's worth taking a look at because that can be an easy fix to get those claims processed and moving.
Jackie, there was a question that I can respond to.
Sure.
There was a question posted, how do I find all the claims in my system that have $0 out for insurance? And there's a nice little report you can run in CareStack. It's called your claim report. I like to download it in a CSV format, and then from there you can open it up and sort it. And you can look at the dollars expected from insurance, and you can filter it high to low, low to high, and you can find all the zero claims. They're open claims, but they're $0 from insurance, and you can pinpoint those and take a look at what's going on with them.
And that as a ways to manage the ones that you don't expect any money from. So maybe those ABPs and for the users that want to kind of work through that and close those out.
Yeah, they may look at that, but they also may go back and say, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that, we did it with the assignment. We want to kind of change that around. So you can find them through the claims report. Just my recommendation is download it to a CSV format, open it there in Excel or whatever you're using, and format it, and there you have it.
Perfect. Thanks, Tony. All right, Lindsay, I think our next slide actually we already covered as well. So if you want to just progress forward.
Sure.
We did talk about our claims tab. We talked about claims pending submission. So I know we're going to do a couple more screen shares. So this might be a great time, Eve, if you want to share your screen again. We can just show quickly on the claims view, the claim form view of the saved versus saved with errors and the things that you should look for when we're trying to manage our claims from that window. So again, on that far right where we have our claim status, we have that saved with errors. And I hope that all of you know that when we click into the line item for that claim, when we want to open up the claim information, it's instantly going to bring you to this window. We're not trying to create any guessing work for you. Everything that needs some immediate attention is going to be highlighted in orange. Now, we are in a demo environment. This one's going to be almost comically obvious, but as you scroll down, it's going to actually flash for you in the areas that need to be filled in. So you've got your license number. I can't imagine any of your environments would just casually be missing a license number. So that's a hard one to miss, but the logic is what's showing here is that it is going to indicate any of the areas that are absolutely essential for this claim to process electronically. Again, it's not indicating at this point in time if everything's going to be covered or how much it's going to be paid. It's just indicating, can this claim successfully process? And that's the first step in getting your claims paid, is making sure we can get them over through the clearinghouse and to those carriers.
Jackie, we see on our clients that are electing not to use the ortho case, their ortho claims will stop because the months of treatment and the date the appliance was placed is blank. That would normally come over with the ortho case, so we have to harvest the record, but it recognizes that that's key data that is not on the claim, and it would be pointless to send it.
Yep, very good point. Thank you.
So we do recommend using the ortho case.
Yes. And honestly, I think we'll probably have a whole boot camp about ortho because we've got a lot of really exciting things in that area. So we won't jump down that rabbit hole tonight, but that's definitely a good topic.
No, that's always an interesting topic.
Yeah. All right, while we're on this window, I just want to address, we've got a question that came through. So for RCM, to clarify, am I receiving notes from the secondary saying that my EOB from the primary has not been attached? So does this mean that RCM team has not done this?
I guess that's my question. I would say no. We always go, in my team, we always go look at what are the facts. So we've seen behavior with dental plans where they say they don't have the claim, but then they've already responded to the claim. It's like, well, it can't be both. We have heard of cases where they're claiming they never got the EOB, and right there it is, and they acknowledge the receipt. It depends on how these payers build their systems. Most of those systems have been built over years and years and years and patched together, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. It's not a perfect system. So they may have a system in place where when the claim comes in, the attachment separates from the claim, and then they have to go get it and marry it back together. And if somebody doesn't do that, the presumption is they don't have it. So I guess the end game here is we have to go look at what are the facts. Did we see it go through the clearinghouse? Do we see the attachment with it? If so, then it's a matter of just working with the dental plan to say, yes, you do have it, but if you insist, I'll give you another.
Thank you, Tony. All right. Let's see. Our next slide here we were just going to show a little bit more about when the provider information needs to be corrected, but I think we're showing that well from the screen share that we had before as well. So I think we're going to move forward to that next slide, Lindsay, for claims transmission. I know Tony wanted to speak a bit about this for the common transmission methods and those electronic ways to cover.
Yeah, absolutely. Tony, take it away.
Okay. So claims transmission, we've had electronic claims forever. And I still do find practices that are sending claims paper. And sometimes I'm introduced to some very interesting scenarios. I recently had a client that they told us that it's a Medicaid plan. And they told us that they were told by the Medicaid plan that the claims had to be mailed flat. They couldn't be folded. It had to be in a brown envelope, 9x12, a clasp envelope, and it had to be addressed in a certain way. And when they first told me that, I thought maybe they were trying to do some of my dry humor with me, and they were serious. And what we went back and said, we really don't have to do that. I know someone told you that at one point, but we immediately found an electronic payer ID for them and convinced them to send the claims electronically, and of course, all is well. So there's going to be times when you have to question what you hear from the plan. Somewhere along the line, somebody told them to send a paper claim. It had to be a certain way. You heard the story. And that's the way it kind of locked in. We definitely recommend electronic claims. There's a lot of reasons. It's lower cost. There's a small fee through the clearinghouse to handle a claim. If you send them through the mail, it's getting pricier and pricier. A first class envelope is, what is it, 67 cents now or something? The other thing to consider with your manual claims, if you're mailing in paper, is I personally am experiencing, and we've advised our care revenue clients this last year, there's a significant slowdown in the U.S. mail. And what they're doing is they're not moving mail city to city until they get a full load. So I had something that went from my home here in the Orlando area to Tampa. It's an 1.5-hour drive. It took 10 days for that to arrive in Tampa. That's because they're not going to move the mail until it's a full load. And that's how they're controlling their costs and cutting back the number of trips. So when we think about how long it takes to get a claim in the hands of a dental plan, and then what they do with it, they run it through a scanner and turn it into a digitized claim anyway. So the best practice is to find the electronic payer ID, send those claims electronically. You're going to get an electronic handshake that shows it's been sent and received. And if there's a problem with it, you're going to know about it much sooner than sending it paper. So we highly endorse sending claims electronically.
Excellent advice, Tony. I totally agree.
Uploading them in the portal, you can do that. You have to consider the time to key all that stuff in. I think sometimes clients do like to do that because they have a sense of, they know for a fact the data's right. I understand. You just have to decide how you're going to spend your time. So if I sent 100 claims electronically and 3 bounce back, I can deal with those 3 in, I don't know, we'll call it 20 minutes. Think about the time it takes, though, to enter manually in a portal 100 claims. So, you know, we just want to give clients the understanding that you want to put your time and resources on things that are going to generate cash for your practice. And with the time it would take to hand key 100 claims, could be time you spend on patient statements, handling some unapplied cash that's on the ledger, things like that.
Good points, Tony. Thank you.
Maximizing efficiency. It's
Absolutely.
where the win. It's always at.
The fewest number of touches possible. Everything that you touch costs money.
Yep.
Absolutely. Next, we'll jump to NEA recommendation, right? That NEA stamp. What is the importance of it when it appears on the claims grid, right? So Tony, I'll let you jump in here as well, along with Jackie and Yeva, to walk through the importance of this piece.
Certainly. Tony, do you want us to share our screen to show some of the settings that we can do manually?
I don't have the screen share.
Yeva and I could do it. That's fine.
Oh, okay. So what we do typically in the care revenue side, we've built kind of a history of what codes with what payers require what attachments. So as that claim is coming through the system, we've got it set up to alert us that a particular attachment is necessary. Now, that's operating in a very proactive mode because we're anticipating the need for data in addition to the claim itself. I have seen practices that send all their claims out, and when they get a response from a payer that says, I want an x-ray, then they respond to that and send it back. Well, by the time that works itself through the system, you could have already been paid. So we're a real fan of the NEA attachments to flag those as they come through the system so that you're always looking for those attachments and getting them done. The other thing it does is if you have, everybody gets busy. If you have an image that isn't quite over in the side of the system it needs to be, and you look for it as a companion to the claim, it's going to help you keep that imaging system updated and everything organized. Same with notes and narratives. If you've got a claim that flags because you need the narrative and the doctor hasn't quite finished it yet, then there's your safety valve to make sure that the narrative does get created and saved in the clinical record.
Definitely. And I know Yeva has it up on her screen. So for those of you who might not be as familiar with this, directly from your practice settings, under your payments category, you have NEA recommendations. And this is where you can go in and customize the NEA recommendations that you see fit. Now, you could create these because you just know that it's best practice and you've been doing it for a while. You can also create these because you're just tired of getting the same message from insurance all the time saying, I need this, I need that, I need this. So as Yeva is demonstrating, you can create it on a code by code basis. So on a specific code, I know that I need these specific attachment types, and you can select one or as many from that list as you'd like. Yeva, if you could click the drop down just to show all the options on the, the attachment type. So you have all these options to choose from. You can do one or as many as you want. And one of the other great features of this is you can actually narrow this down to a specific carrier. So you can do all. You can just say, this is in general, I always want these attachments anytime this code is completed. But let's say for the code that Yeva chose, it's Cigna, who's the squeaky wheel, and they don't want just an X-ray and a narrative. They also want the payer chart, and they also want XYZ. You can create a specific one just for that insurance carrier so that when a code is completed with that insurance tag to it, you're getting a very specific directive of what kind of NEA attachments that you need to be prepared for.
And I actually have an example here. So if I'm going back to my insurance claim grid under document pending, I have example, I believe it's this one. So when I click into that, I have my attachment recommendation information over here. So I know what is required for me to attach to this claim.
Again, these settings are all about being proactive. I know that that's probably one of Anthony's favorite actions for our users to have, but as proactive as you can be just means that your claims are going to process as fast as possible. We don't want to have any delays in your world for you guys to get the money that you deserve to get from the insurance companies.
Jackie, you said the magic word with Perio, and we're seeing nearly every plan out there. When you're doing periodontal work, they want to see the record. They want to see the image, the grid, the scoring system, all of that. And what they're really asking for is evidence of medical necessity. So we've worked with clients that have done a lot of perio work and they can't get it paid, and we've trained them on how to architect their note to show that the care was necessary, and they will pay it then. But a lot of them will not pay it without some type of evidence that goes with it.
Very true.
Exactly. All right.
While I'm sharing a screen, I know that we want to talk about some rejections and flags. Tony, if you wanted me to keep sharing a screen, if you want to take over.
No, I think we're good with this, and we have questions. We had a very interesting question just pop up that says, can you share that verbiage for perio? I could probably do a whole podcast with everyone on that concept. I'm not a fan of just copy paste notes. I'm more of a fan of telling the clinical story. And because we also have a medical service unit, we train providers to tell the clinical story, not just, reach in and kind of do those things. So, that's probably another podcast subject right there about how do we architect language that tells that clinical story that convinces the plan to pay for this service.
Well,
I'm excited to talk
it.
about it because I talk about it every day on our medical service unit. So, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we can go on. We can go on unless we have questions.
One of my favorite parts of boot camp is we always have more ideas for more boot camp. All right.
Yes.
I think our next couple slides we have in our presentation, we actually just covered by looking at any recommendations in real time on a actual demo claim. So we can actually move past those and move towards the claim status after transmission, which I know is a really important area for you, Tony, and for the care revenue side of things.
So that's next on my list. What I want you to do is just follow along a little bit. When we send a claim, it's a little bit like mailing a letter. If you don't put postage on it, it comes right back to you. If you address it, but it's a bad address, it'll work its way to that zip code and they'll do their best, and then it'll come back to you days later. So when you think about sending claims, if they're going out electronically, your first, I guess, barrier you have to get through is you have to get it through the clearinghouse. Now, some plans will not even bring that claim into their system until they have a match with the subscriber. They just look at it and say, if I can't match it to the subscriber, we're just going to bounce it right back to the sendor. And the reason a lot of them do that is that eliminates the need for them to bring it into their system, regurgitate all that claim data back on an EOB that maybe they mail to you, and they incur the cost of postage or the processing of the EOB. They just bounce it back on the front end. So we always want people to be paying attention to the clearinghouse statuses. That's critical. That's critical information. I've had people before saying, well, if I send all the claims, they should all show up on the EOB. Not true. So the first thing you want to do is keep up with the clearinghouse information that comes back to you each day to make sure you've addressed all the items there. Once you do send the claims, then most of those claims are going to go through some claim adjudication system and there'll be a response. Not all. That's why you have to do account follow-up. Years ago, I had a hospital CEO came to me and said, why do we have all these unpaid insurances? And I said, well, it's because not all the claims get paid when they go out. And he was very shocked to hear that. He thought, we send it, we get paid. I said, it doesn't work like your credit card bill. There are times that we have to go chase it down and wait and prompt and insist. So you want to watch your EOBs, and the number one item that practices have to be careful of is your zero pay EOBs. They don't have a check in them. So a lot of times they get misrouted. Nobody's real sure what to do with this thing. It doesn't have a check in it. Well, beware of zero pay EOBs because they're responding to your claim. And for the care revenue clients, they image those and send them to us and we process it. So the claim rejections, you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on all those things that are falling off the wagon and dust them off and fix them up and put them right back into production as soon as you can.
And Tony, I know we're getting close to the top of the hour. I hope all of our viewers would be willing to just spend a couple more minutes with us. We have a couple good questions here, so maybe we can just address those. Sure. First one, do we have to close the claim to fix these issues, or can we change the information in the insurance and then try to resend the claims?
Yeah, you can go back and adjust and create a new claim if you need to. If the claim has not been received by the payer, if it bounces back on the clearinghouse, you might go back and just kind of redo that, void your original claim, and then send another one. Now,
okay.
once the claim is in the hands of the plan, we don't recommend you void it.
Okay. And the next question is, I have this issue often, whether it can't find the subscriber or the zip code. Usually nothing is incorrect. Do I just resubmit?
I would say no. If you're getting a response back from the payer that they can't match the subscriber or that zip code, you've got to talk to that plan to say, what's going on here? Have I transposed a number? Am I working off of an old insurance card that maybe you've issued all new cards, all new IDs? You got to go all the way back to your eligibility information and recheck it.
Right. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. This is one of my favorite slides of the night, that when we look at claim rejections, the far majority of what we see is where the basic demographic information is incorrect. I've seen more than a few claims where, you've got a child of a parent and their group health plan is through their local utility company, and the claim goes through with the 9-year-old as the policyholder. Well, the 9-year-old is the patient, not the policyholder, and the payers are becoming very, very particular about that information, so they return it. Making sure that the name matches what the plan has on file, it's the right subscriber, the right date of birth, all of that is critical. And of course, billing the current insurance who is covering that patient. So a lot of your claim rejections go back to just demographic data that needs to be cleaned up.
Perfect. How do we effectively work on these claims? And how do you do that utilizing CareStack? That's a big piece. And we hear this a lot from you as clients, right? Is making sure that we work these claims in the right way while leveraging our big, beautiful platform here. So Tony, I'll let you drive here again.
Yes, when you take a look at a lot of practices that have a very long list of receivable, they're very busy. The claim flag in CareStack is just an outstanding tool to keep up with what's going on. If you work a list of 40 claims and you start identifying what needs to happen, back in the old days, maybe somebody would take a multicolor highlighter or different codes on the report. Today with CareStack, you could just go in and put the claim flag on it, and then you can keep that organized as to what type of issue it is. That eliminates the time for you to continue to rerun the report and rediscover the same thing you've always learned. Once you go through your claim flags, and you've gone through your claims and you've got your flags, you can form an action plan to say, okay, what's the total number of dollars by claim flag? What's going to be my plan of approach here? So in the care revenue side, we use the claim flags extensively, and it's one of the top items that I talk to my group about. What does this practice need as far as support? Because what is happening to their claims?
Great. Anything else to add there, Jackie or Eva?
No, I think that covers it well.
Absolutely.
Well, next we'll kind of dive into our Q&A. I know we've been answering questions as we go, but wanted to give you all the opportunity to really jump in and ask our panelists in here any specific questions that you've had top of mind that maybe got missed along the way. We want to be able to provide you with that time as well. So fire away.
All right.
First one, yeah, go ahead, Jackie.
We've got one in here from one of our viewers that says, do we have to delete claims in order to change the subscriber in the family file if the subscriber selected wrong?
Well, I think it goes back, if that question's to me, I think it goes back to, did we send that claim and is that claim in process, or did it bounce right back off the clearinghouse? Do we want to start over, really? So if you go back into CareStack and say, you know what, I'm going to redo this demographic information, I'm going to void that claim and send a fresh claim, then I would say that's the appropriate time to do that. If the claim is already in the hands of the dental plan and you're working on it with them, then I would take a different strategy. We're not a real fan of voiding claims, because if you've worked on a claim and there's claim notes and claim flags and you void it, you've just erased all that. It's out there, but it's under a void claim. So it kind of falls off the production map. So we recommend that you're cautious about, if you need to do a new claim because the one you did never went anywhere, or it's not in production, and you can void it and do a do-over, and now you have an accurate claim.
Awesome. All right, and then another question we have is, how do you fix payer issues on claims? And, you know, I don't know if Devin, who put this question in, if you could elaborate a little bit further on what kind of payer issue you might see. If we have a moment or two, we can try to answer that tonight.
I mean, I'm willing to take a stab at it.
Sure.
I anticipate what you might be referring to. To be candid about it, the reimbursement world with plans, health plans and dental plans, there's lots of payer issues. They do things wrong. They don't always adjudicate claims the way your contract is. I could go on for another whole session or two or three about what I've witnessed over the years. I call that payer relations. There's times that you have to go back to that plan and say, look, we need to talk. This is what you're doing. This is adversely affecting your members' benefit plan, ability to utilize their benefits. They will pay attention to that. So maybe there's another good subject for a webinar too. But payer issues, if you've got a HIPAA compliant claim that's accurate and they're not processing it, that goes into payer relations.
And just further clarification says it usually just says payer issue. So I end up mailing the claims, and it's often a Blue Cross Blue Shield issue.
I don't recommend that as a solution. I know that feels good to get the claim out of your, off into the wilderness. We pretty much forbid that in the care revenue side, because I go back and say that's not a solution. Let's identify the problem and fix the problem. Because I found too often people will just mail the claim and they feel good about that. They sent the claim. But if you go and watch, does it really ever get dealt with?
Thank you. I think we answered all the questions we had come through.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Well, as promised, first, we want to all say thank you to our attendees tonight. And thank you for spending your evening with us. I hope this information was beneficial. You can take it back to your practice, to your team. I know we got the question a couple of times, what's RCM, what's care revenue, right? So just to reiterate, RCM is a term utilized in our industry called revenue cycle management. But what we can offer here within CareStack is our care revenue program, for which we can lend that helping hand in creating a reliable and repeatable process for everything related to revenue cycle management, right? So you want to make sure that you're doing this to the utmost potential with the highest efficiency level. Come learn how we can help you with that through care revenue and being a care revenue client, right? And so being here today, we wanted to provide you with this opportunity and this cost savings of receiving a 33% discount for your first 3 months of being a part of the service, you can certainly scan the QR code here to schedule that demo. You'd be speaking with myself or Matt, who's another member of our Practice Solutions team as well, where we can certainly provide you with a cost estimate for monthly estimated services as well. So always here to help where we potentially can. We want to see every single one of you truly succeed, not only with CareStack, but with your practices and your business as well. And that's extremely important to us. So we hope that you were able to take away a very valuable moment, valuable piece of information tonight. And we want to thank you for your time. So thank you.
That's a wonderful.
Thank you.
So excited for this for our viewers.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Let us know. Feel free to reach out if you do have any additional questions. If not, we will say good evening tonight and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Great questions tonight.
Thank you,
Thank you so
everyone.
much for your participation.